Dobra den, and welcome back to a slightly different Bulgarian adventure. The more observant of you will have noticed I'm on my own this week. Lynne's a little under the weather. It's nothing serious, but she's just taking a little bit of time out to recover. Any wobble you see, it's because the kittens are playing around my feet and on the chair and all sorts, so just bear with me. I'm not used to flying solo, so we'll see how we go. The weather's been a bit of a contributing factor this week on what we could do. It's been cold, but Wednesday morning we had snow again. So of course anything outdoors was ruled out. But we did have a delivery on Wednesday morning. Lynne has finally got some wardrobes. They're not in place yet because I haven't finished the bedroom. But as soon as they are, they'll go down. We can actually hang our stuff away for the first time in over a year. So Lynne's quite excited about that. Work has continued on the bedroom. This week we've been working on the floor, and this is what we've done. I've now got the timber to make the framework for the floor. I've measured where I need to measure. Each one will be measured again when I come to fit it, just to make sure I get it in the right place. But they've already been cut, joined together, and a framework formed. I'm running from just inside the stone ring all the way around the room. That's the first one cut, so it's sitting in place. I'm going to do the other end, and then I can start joining them up with long pieces across the room. I've started building the framework that the floorboards will sit on. Because the floor is uneven, I'm having to prop it up in places. My plan now is to secure parts of it in place with concrete and then continue building the framework. That way it'll stabilise it and also remove any bounce and hold it in place. Once that's done and the floor frame is made, we're planning on concreting around the outside of it to fill in all the gaps. I've now filled the trench up around the framework with gravel. In larger areas I'll put some ballast in, some bricks and bits and pieces, just so I don't have to use so much gravel really. In this corner where it was a lot lower, there's a couple of bricks in you can see on the outside. You can also see the concrete where we've concreted it in to level it up. That's set overnight and that is quite firm. So now we've got to backfill the spaces at this end before we can start laying more joists across the room. We've got to try and make sure we get as much soil underneath the beams where it's not supported as possible. Each beam, as you go along, is concreted at each end and also sits on a concrete pad that provides extra support, but this will be supplemented by earth. I'm now halfway across the room putting the joists in. They're all held in place with concrete and they've been backfilled with the dirt. Going quite well, all level, don't seem to move too much, so it looks like we might have a result. Here's the second half of the room waiting to be done. Slowly but surely we're doing it, but it is getting there, and hopefully I'll get this finished today. And that's the framework now complete, and as level as I can get it. I've just got to prop up that end joist before we move on to the next part. I have a slight issue in that I've used all of the dirt up to that point. So once I come across to the very end here, I've only got little odds and ends, which aren't very good for anything. So I'm going to put gravel in there, and that should support the beam, and then concrete along the edge. I've decided to put these bricks here, just for a bit of sound deadening when you first come into the room. They'll be under the floorboards. That's their sole purpose, they don't do anything else. But I have concreted along the edge, all the way around the room. Along the wall where the window is, I've concreted in this beam. It's basically so I have something to attach the floorboards to when I get to the very end of the room. Here are the floorboards. They're 4 meters long, which you can see by the way I've got them laid in the room, is slightly shorter than the room is. Now we've got two choices. We can either join them and cut them to length, which is a lot of messing about, or I can cut them to fit along this end beam, and once they're in place I can then level off with a bit of concrete at the very end. All that's at this end of the room will be a couple of wardrobes and the head end of the bed, so it won't show. So while I admit that's not the ideal solution, it's a solution I'm taking. I've now started laying the floorboards. I've got the first 6 down. We have a nice sturdy floor, and slowly but surely I'll get this finished in the next day or so, but that's a job for another day. Last week's theme night was Bulgarian. We have started off with some banitsas, which I have to confess we ate before I had a chance to photograph them. We then moved on to some Bulgarian moussaka and finished off with walnut and chocolate cake, which we did buy from a bakery in Targovishti rather than bake it ourselves. But it was all lovely, and we'll continue this week. I believe Max wants to go Japanese, so we'll see what we can do with that. More updates next week. So that's about it from me this week. It's a bit shorter, but we'll be back to hopefully normal next week, where we'll be able to bring you up to date with a bit more news. But in the meantime, we both trust you well, and from Lynne and myself, take care, be safe, and do skoro.